What if I told you that the secret to stronger, more fulfilling relationships isn't more love, but a Google Calendar? Spoiler alert, it's both, but mostly the calendar. Maintaining and nurturing relationships is really hard, whether it be with your family, your friends, your kids, your partner, your parents. It is a really, really hard thing to do, especially as you get older and older. Things start to wear out, including your relationships. Personally, I don't want to die alone. I don't want to die old and alone, swiping up and down, left and right, looking for connections and a cheap thrill. I dread that entire idea. And I know that I have a lot of good people in my circle, in my community. But the challenge has become for me, as I imagine it is for many others, is actually nurturing those relationships. So what can we do different? This is something that I made my problem because it was, and I wanted to find a solution. And the solution was right in my face. So first up, it begs the question, why does this even happen? I have the opinion, I don't know about you, but I have the opinion that it comes down to convenience. The reason that a lot of relationships fall apart, some probably because they needed to. You probably didn't have a real strong connection in the first place. But the reason that most others fall apart, let's imagine your siblings, your brothers, your sisters, even your family, your parents. The reason that they fall apart is because it's no longer convenient. I think when you were young and you all lived in the same house, you had a relationship, but it was convenient. You were in the same home. And when you went to school, you had friends there that you really connected with, but it was convenient. You had time every day to sit down, talk, play, go to the playground. Maybe you were in groups in high school. I wasn't in anything, but a lot of people were really social. They were in sports and choir. My kids did choir. They did band. I didn't do any of that, but that scheduled time together, there's a clue right there. The scheduled time together and the activity that they were doing together allowed them to connect and to really get to know each other. The problem becomes later in life when you do leave school, when you do leave the home, when you are no longer seeing each other often outside of maybe family picnics, or if we're talking about family picnics or get-togethers. It's no longer convenient. Perhaps you're not even in the same home, you're not in the same school, and worse yet, you may not even be in the same city. Let me know if you're in the comments if you still talk to anyone from high school or middle school. I think I have a couple that I talk to, but it's really, really minimal. I have one friend that goes back to high school, and I have zero past that. And I'm not mad at any of them. We all have our lives, and that's what it comes down to. We're all very, very busy. So what makes a strong relationship? I think for me, a strong relationship is a deep one in which both people or everyone can show up and be themselves, and in which, if I'm hanging out with you, which personally, and we're in a situation where I can speak freely, when I know that I don't have to just sit there and listen, where I'm allowed to share my experiences, my life, those are, to me, are the most important ones, where I know that I'm being seen, heard, and loved for being myself, maybe even called out on my crap, like, hey, Teevee, you have a pattern, Coming from a close friend, this would mean a lot to me, but it goes on both ways, where the other person feels that they actually are able to speak without being interrupted, without feeling that they have to suppress their ideas because maybe you don't agree with them. They truly feel nurtured and loved. That is a strong relationship. At least it is for me. Feel free to share in the comments if you personally feel that the definition of a deep, strong relationship is different. Share your definition with me. Now, the big thing about building strong relationships is that they take real work. As I stated earlier, most of our older relationships, as it relates to family and friends and schoolmates, were convenient. So when you had those and when you were kind of digging them and into each other, you had time together. You were nurturing them because of the presence around each other. But as you grow older and you have kids, for me, I have a grandkid now, that becomes a lot more difficult. So it takes real work and intentionality rather. So your relationships need to be nurtured. It's no longer convenient. So my solution is to have planned, scheduled get-together calls. I call them dates. You can do on Zoom calls or in person, and actually have them on the calendar. So that goes back to the calendar component of this entire thing, as I stated at the very beginning. So what I recommend is doing one-on-ones. And I stick pretty close to that, except in an instance with my sisters, which I will talk about here in a second, but one-on-one. This allows each person to truly speak freely. There's no rush to get airtime, to find moments, to try to get into the conversation and interject. If you have 3 or 4 people, it starts to get a little more difficult for individuals that really struggle to interject. It's not uncommon that in a family you have one person that tends to be more silent, quiet, and wait for their moment to speak. And then you have one other person who also, and sometimes that's me, and often that's me, who just has a story after a story after a story and then doesn't allow for airtime for other individuals. So one-on-one, at the very least, it becomes easier to manage. That person can speak a little more easily and everyone can feel heard, because that's what we all want. We all want to share our stories and our experiences and what we're going through. One-on-one allows you to do that. It allows for transparency. And this is a very important topic. It allows for transparency. And this is very important for me because depending on who you're talking to or what you've been through, you might have some issues that you need to talk through. I did this with my sisters, and it was very important for me because I needed to do a better job when I first started hanging out with them, trying to kind of undo a lot of the stuff that has gone on in our lives that we haven't spoken about. So I sat down with them individually and I apologized and we forgave. I apologized for anything and everything that I can think of that I may have done to them in years past, and vice versa. By being alone and being just one-on-one, it allows for that transparency, allows for that vulnerability. It allows for that vulnerability to come through in a way that doing it in a group does not permit, or at the very least, it limits it depending on who's there. One-on-one, just you and this other person. So when I do have these one-on-ones, and when we are trying to break through some beef and some issues that we've had, my mantra is to be first. It's something I talk about a lot in so many contexts, but especially in this. And if it's your first one together, is be first. Apologize first. Share first. Be vulnerable first. Give first. Whatever that first may be for you. Tell the joke first. It lets them know that this is a safe space and that if they want to share, they're free to share. But be first and don't expect. I guess on the other side is if you can ask and you can hope, but don't expect them to do so. But more than likely, they will, because if you open up, that's the thing about vulnerability and transparency. And if we're being honest and sharing of ourselves, something that we may not be very proud of, it's going to open up the other person. It's just a natural result from opening up and sharing first. So who have I done this with? Who am I consistent with? I'll start with number one, my daughters. They're both adults now. One's 22, one's 20. One's a mother and is growing a family. The other one's in college in Indiana. I think what I realized as I was getting older is that I struggle to talk to my parents. And even when I try to sit down and talk to them, the conversations are real hard because they're not open to opening up. And this is a different generation, and I get that, but then me sharing becomes difficult because they know very little about me. They don't understand my story. And there hasn't been this ongoing conversation over the years to have them understand where I'm at, where I'm going. They're not able to jump into the story. So it's really challenging. And I thought that for me, I wanted to do something different. I thought that we could do something different. So for my older daughter, because she has a family, we have monthly dates scheduled. I think it's the third Sunday. I forget, but it's on the calendar. It's recurring. She's invited. It happens. Unless something else comes into play, like holidays or something like that. But we have it scheduled. And with my other daughter, we have weekly calls. So every Thursday at 5 p.m., we always get confused with the time zones. We sit down, we do a Zoom call, and we catch up. And sometimes it seems as if we're not going to talk about much, but then we get going and it blows up. Sometimes it goes an hour and a half or 2 hours. It's scheduled for one. But it's a beautiful thing because we are connecting. I feel that if we continue to do this as we get older, as we both get older, it'll be easier to connect with each other, or rather, to stay connected. That the disconnection won't happen. And I feel like that's what happened with my parents. And through no fault of their own, because it's just not how they're wired. I do not know my parents. My daughters will know me. And these weekly calls, it'll probably go to monthly here soon after she graduates and she starts her career and whatnot. But at the very least, for right now, it's every single week. And I look forward to it. She looks forward to it. She wants to show what she's got going on in school, what degree what crazy story she has going on, what how her grades are doing, her teacher loves her, how maybe she's having issues. But she's able to do that every single week. And I feel that I'm connected to her, that I'm right there, kind of, sort of, right? So my daughters, I would encourage you to plan on doing that or do it now. Reach out to your kids. Also, I actually look forward to this. As I mentioned a second ago, I don't hardly know my parents, and this is the truth. For the most part, I don't know much about them outside of a handful of stories that they've shared repeatedly over the years, but I don't know them. My goal, this is my vision, my goal is for my daughters to be able to each write a book about their father. I think that's fair. Or at least co-author one and write the screenplay for the movie that will be made of my life and her life. That's, I know I'm being stupid, but the point is, I want them to know me. And what better way to get to know your parents, your person, your father, your mother, than through conversations, intentional, ongoing conversations as you continue to live life. Next people that I've done this with is with my sisters, my family. And I have other siblings, but unfortunately, due to other unforeseen circumstances, having those conversations with those other individuals in my family are not possible at the moment. I hope one day that maybe we could hash out some stuff, but for now, can't. But what I have been able to do, and I have to focus on that, is that my sisters, I've been able to do that. So every third Wednesday or so, I meet with my sisters and we have dinner. This is 2-on-1. In this case, this is where I break the 1-on-1 thing. But because we are family and we hang out for like 2 hours, 2.5 hours, we're able to get airtime and speak without being interrupted. But because there is more than 1-on-1, there's actually 3, there is more people, I have asked them, and added some structure to it, I've asked them to bring to the meeting, to the dinner, bring things that they want to talk about, things that are important to them, things that happen, maybe things they want to ask the group about and help each other out as siblings and all old farts. And it works. It's worked. They look forward to it. It's, once again, no siblings, no partners. It is just us speaking freely, being able to vent. We all need that space to vent. So for us, that's what that serves, is a space to vent freely without judgment. And we all understand each other's stories. We're obviously siblings. We've been so our entire lives. So it's become a incredibly fulfilling experience. Every single month when I meet with them, I just feel happier. I'm their big brother, so it makes me happy to be a part of this and to be able to reconnect and be together again. They were my baby sisters. It makes me super happy. And I'll tell you a side benefit at the end of the video of what has come as a result of us hanging out every single month, one of the big payoffs. So for the most part, as it relates to my sisters rather, we just hang out and we share stories about what's going on, family issues with each other, kids, whatever. But one of the ideas that I do want to interject into the next meeting or two to just kind of keep it fun and different is to kind of remix it. And what I'm going to do is pull out my phone, go online and ask, and go on the internet and try to find questions to ask, just random questions. So at the end of the day, it's just about engaging with each other and trying to find out more about each other, just get into each other's heads a little bit. I might just even ask AI, like, hey, ChatGPT, AI, what question would be great to ask my sibling who I've been, whose big brother I am, right? Anything like that, to just keep it fun. And that's if you feel like it, for me, like just to keep it different, keep it lively, and maybe make them laugh. Because at the end of the day, it has to be fun. It has to be fun and engaging. Otherwise, everyone's going to tune out. I hope that that's not the case, but I'm already anticipating like boredom or redundancy. But for that reason, I'm going to start. Might even bring a book that I have. I might even bring one of the books on questions that I have. I have like 4 or 5, like 100 questions to do this or 100 questions for that. So I might even do that. Point being is keep it fresh, keep it live. And I thought I'd drop that in here in case you're wondering, like, what do I ask them? Although I think for the most part, if you just hang out, sit tight, and ask questions about each other and what they've been up to, you should fill up a good hour easily. Next, I have dates with close friends. Now, please know that this is platonic. This is good friends, close friends that I love and respect, male and female. So what I do here is hang out with those individuals that I truly love and respect, and who I especially see having lifelong relationships with. Individuals who I have a lot in common with, or who I have enough in common with and enough different with that it keeps everything kind of fresh and live. And at the end of the day, the structure is similar to with my sisters and my kids. It's just to catch up, to see what we've been up to, and to really push the depth of the relationship. In terms of what you talk about, it's very much the same. It's just, what are you up to? What are you doing? What are you worried about? What are your concerns? What are you dreaming about? What are your New Year's resolutions? That's a good one right now, since it's December 31st when I'm recording this. Or anything, like what's happening in your life, and vice versa. Then sharing your stuff, sharing openly, maybe getting an opinion on things going on in your life. There's so much that can be talked about if you're not being interrupted by other people. And I think that's something that, if I haven't already said, is when you're in big groups, so when you're at parties or social events or networking, you might run into these individuals. But the challenge is that you're not going to go really deep with them at those events because there's so much going on. And the only way to do it is by devoting one-on-one time with them to be able to get to know them better, or to continue to know them better and continue to stay tapped into what's going on in their life. The key point about all of this is remembering that to make this work, you have to have a healthy respect for each other, maybe a love for each other, love as a friend, love as a family member. If there is absolute bitterness and resentfulness already there, and there's no desire to at least get past it or have a respect for each other, then obviously this is not going to work. These are for people that you already like and just want to get to know better or continue to know better. And these are individuals that you want to get past that surface level with. Maybe you just met someone. We have a friend that we met in the dance community, as an example. She seemed really cool, absolutely cool. And both me and Carla decided, this is my partner, my girlfriend, my fiance. Sorry, babe. I always forget about the girlfriend thing. It's not fiance. We both agreed that she seemed really cool and we wanted to get to know her. So we invited her over for dinner. We wanted to get past that surface level pleasantries of it all and get to know who she was. And since then, she has gone on to become one of our closest friends, period. It sounds crazy that even with your friends that you should go out on dates with, or potential friends, go on a date with them. Find out more about them. Who are you? What are you about? What's your story, dude? You'll be surprised as to what you can create if you're more intentional with it. And there's a worldwide epidemic of loneliness, but there's billions of people out there in the world, at least millions in your given city, if not hundreds of thousands. I don't know where you're at, pardon me. But the problem of loneliness, we have to start with ourselves. We have to be first. We have to go out and we have to at least nurture the relationships that you already have so that they don't become fragmented and ultimately you don't have friendships. Or as it relates to my kids, I don't ever want to look up one day and like, my kids never come talk to me or check in on me. Like, that's something I never want to say about them. But I'm only able to avoid that, I think, if we're talking now. If we're having conversations today, having conversations in 10 or 20 years will be easy because we've been doing it all our lives. Going back to my parents, we didn't talk. So talking to them is very difficult. How are you going to build on something that hasn't been established? You can, obviously. I'm not a complete jerk. I get it. But it's really, 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 really hard. So the absolute most essential thing about all of this is to put it on your calendar. If you've already established that you want to do this, you've asked them to go on a date with you or to just hang out, whatever you want to call it. You don't have to be scandalous about it. Put it on your calendar. Put it on your calendar. Do not just talk about it. Too many people say, hey, we should get together sometime. We haven't seen each other in years. And never, ever take it past that. And I think part of it might be intentional, so that way you can avoid it. But if you really mean it, pull out the calendar. I did this the other day with my nephew. I said, he asked me, he said, hey, we should get together. And I said, I agree. So instead of just putting it off, I pulled out my calendar app. It's on our phone, people. It's on our phone. So I pulled it out, looked at the calendar. I said, actually, hold on. Let me get back to you because I got to confirm a couple of things. But let's look at plan on this week. There's no better time than now. And at the very least, put it in on the calendar for a month from now, 2 months from now, 3 months from now, whenever possible, to be able to move it forward. Otherwise, you're lying to them and you're lying to yourself. And that's not good. You don't want to be known as that individual. Now, there's this law, Dunbar's law, that states that a person can only have about 150 relationships which they can keep and manage. 150 relationships. And I don't know, I'm not going to tell you the full science of it, but it makes sense in that we cannot mentally keep up with more than 150 people before the relationships start to be thinner. The strength between those relationships starts to be thinner and weaker and weaker and weaker. So, having a million friends on Facebook or Instagram, they're not friends. They're just random internet connections. But 150 friends, connections, and relationships, I think it's still a lot to actually do this with. So don't even consider that. For me, maybe about 20, I would be able to do this. And if we're being honest, it's probably closer to 5 to 10. My family, some of my siblings, my kids, some of my close friends. That's about right. You can't do this with everyone because this thing will fall apart. You'll break, and now it's a job. You don't want that either. So be mindful of that. So I invite you to try this with a friend or a family member. Be first. This is a rule of my life that I try to live up to. If there's something that I believe should be done, if I believe that somebody should be doing this or should be doing that, I ask myself, am I doing it? And if not, then that means I'm a joke, and then I should be first. So be first, try first, invite someone out, invite them, even if it's a Zoom call or a phone call, actually put it on the calendar so that way you can start to push that relationship and nurture that relationship a little deeper. So I told you about a payoff from my sister's get together. A couple of days ago, we got together for our Christmas party. It was actually like the 30th or 29th, whatever. But we got together, and it was just my sisters and essentially all the cousins. And there's, 10, 12 of us, 12 of them. We had the absolute best time ever. All the trauma, the drama, the beef, the issues had been resolved. So they weren't under the surface, bubbling up. Everybody's trying to keep the peace. We were all getting along, and the siblings were getting along too. Regardless of the personalities in the room, people were laughing, loving, hugging, joking, dancing. It was a beautiful time. And I'm absolutely convinced that wouldn't have happened if we hadn't been meeting for these 8-9 months before. Because we were able to hash through that and work through our stuff, we could hang out and not dread it. Too many times, and we just went through a Christmas and Thanksgiving. Too many times, those issues haunt us, and then we show up at these family events, and because we haven't resolved them, they're there. The energy is there, and the event and the hangout with those individuals at those parties becomes kind of blah, and you're eager to leave. Everyone's eager for you to leave, whatever it may be. I was absolutely thrilled. I'm so happy that we were able to do that, and that we as siblings have decided to do better and to hang out. And at the end of the day, it's just a good time. What's wrong with that? Like, it's a good time. It's not work. It's fun. So give it a shot. Invite your friends and family on a date. Please note, and this is an important note, sometimes the significant others of the individual that you're inviting might have an issue with them going on this date or this hangout with you. Hopefully not, but if they do and they want to come, that's your call. But me personally, I try to insist that they not come. Unless you're planning a double date or something like that, which is different. The structure of that is different. It's up to you to design. And like I mentioned earlier, I actually did that. It was my girlfriend and I hosted our friend, our new friend, and we became super friends. That's different. But if you're trying to do the one-on-one thing, it's hard to do that when the partner's right there, hovering. It becomes complicated. It becomes hard. And I think there's value and importance in that individual being able to speak freely without the partner. My take. Feel free to disagree. in the comments if you like, but that's how I feel about that. All right. So thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your attention. This has been fun. It's something I wanted to share because it's something that I do and I encourage every one of my friends to do. So I thought I'd share with you, good people of YouTube and podcasting world. So thank you. If you like this video, then check out the video right here where I share how I was able to teach my kids the value of money and prevent them from being entitled little jerks in the process. Hit the link. And until then, see you in the next video. Bye-bye.